What does it really mean to lose? Not just a scoreline. Not just an early flight home. But a loss that exposes something deeper, a crack in the armor that nobody wanted to see. On that night, Samurai Japan, the defending WBC champions, the team that carried an entire nation's pride on their backs, walked off the field in silence. Eliminated. In the quarterfinals. By Venezuela. Manager Hirokazu Ibata stood at the microphone, calm but honest, and said 7 words that will echo through Japanese baseball for years. They had many hitters who were strong against fastballs. 7 words. That's it. No excuses. No blame. Just the cold, brutal truth of what happened. But here's what nobody is telling you. Behind those 7 words is a story far bigger than one bad night. It's a story about preparation, identity, and what happens when the world catches up to you. Today, we're going to break it all down, from the first pitch to the final out, and ask the question that every Japanese baseball fan is quietly thinking. Where does Samurai Japan go from here? To understand the shock of this loss, you have to understand the confidence Samurai Japan carried into this tournament. This was not a team that came in unprepared. Manager Ibata had assembled a roster built on experience, depth, and the lessons learned from the 2023 WBC triumph. The names on that roster were familiar. The expectations were enormous. Japan had breezed through the earlier rounds. The pitching looked sharp. The lineup was clicking. There was a quiet belief, not arrogance, but genuine confidence, that this team was built to go all the way. Even within the coaching staff, the sentiment was clear: this group had the talent. They had the mental toughness. They had the history. And then Venezuela happened. Let's talk about the game itself, because the details matter. Japan came out strong. They scored first. They had the lead. In that moment, everything looked exactly the way it was supposed to look. The script was going according to plan. But Venezuela didn't read that script. Inning by inning, something shifted. The Venezuelan hitters, aggressive, powerful, and supremely confident, started doing something that Japan's pitchers were not fully prepared for. They were sitting on fastballs. And they were crushing them. This is the part where Ibata's post-game words hit differently when you go back and listen to them. He didn't say his pitchers were bad. He didn't say the defense let them down. He pointed specifically to the quality of the opposing hitters and their ability to time and punish high-velocity pitches. In modern baseball, the fastball arms race has reached a point where velocity alone is no longer the weapon it once was. The top hitters in the world, and Venezuela had several of them, trained specifically to handle 95, 96, 97 miles per hour. They live for it. They practice against it. They build their entire offensive approach around being ready for it. Japan's pitching staff, for all its brilliance, leaned too heavily on what had worked before. And Venezuela made them pay for it. The come-from-behind loss wasn't just a momentum shift. It was a statement. A message delivered at the highest level of international baseball that said, "We studied you, we were ready for you, and we beat you." There's something deeply important about the way Hirokazu Ibata handled that press conference. In a world where managers often deflect, speak in generalities, or hide behind statistics, Ibata chose transparency. He acknowledged the opponent's strength directly. He didn't manufacture excuses. He didn't throw his players under the bus. This kind of honesty is rare. And in Japanese baseball culture, where the relationship between a manager and his players is built on deep mutual respect, it speaks volumes. What Ibata was really saying, between the lines, was this: we were beaten by better preparation on that day. Not by inferior talent. Not by bad luck. By an opponent who came in with a specific game plan and executed it to perfection. For anyone who has studied the way elite sports teams operate, that acknowledgement is both humbling and instructive. You cannot fix what you refuse to see. And Ibata saw it clearly. The players heard it too. You could see it in their faces in the dugout during those final innings, not panic, but a kind of quiet recognition. This is happening. We are not finding an answer tonight. That recognition, painful as it is the beginning of growth. Here is the uncomfortable truth that this loss forces Japanese baseball to confront. For years, decades, really, Japan operated with a specific identity on the international stage. Exceptional pitching. Disciplined hitting. Airtight defense. Smart, patient, fundamental baseball played at the highest possible level. That identity won championships. It built legends. It gave the world Ohtani, Darvish, Tanaka, and a generation of players who proved that Japanese baseball could compete with anyone on the planet. But the world took notes. Every country that has faced Samurai Japan in recent years has gone back to their training facilities with one mission: figure out how to beat them. They studied the pitching. They analyzed the tendencies. They built hitters who could handle velocity. They developed their own fundamentals. Venezuela is not a surprise powerhouse. They have been quietly building one of the most dangerous lineups in international baseball. Their hitters are not just talented, they are specifically prepared. The way a surgeon prepares before an operation, not just the night before, but for months, with precision and intent. When Ibata said they had many hitters who were strong against fastballs, he was acknowledging something that goes beyond one game. He was acknowledging a shift in the international baseball landscape. The gap is closing. And Japan must now decide how it will respond. This is where the conversation gets interesting. Because if there is one person in Japanese baseball who has already figured out how to stay ahead of a world that studies you, it is Shohei Ohtani. Ohtani has never stopped evolving. Every off-season, he returns with something new: a refined pitch, an adjusted swing, a deeper understanding of his own body and its capabilities. He does not rest on past performance. He does not assume that what worked last year will work next year. This is the lesson Samurai Japan needs to internalize after Venezuela. The standard cannot be what won us the 2023 WBC. The standard must be what will win us the next one. Those are two completely different questions, and they require two completely different answers. Yu Darvish, in his role as advisor to Samurai Japan, has spoken repeatedly about the importance of preparation that is specific, not general. He has emphasized that pitchers must not just throw in the bullpen, they must visualize, anticipate, and plan for exactly the hitters they will face. That same philosophy must now extend to the entire team. The coaching staff. The scouting reports. The way Japan builds its next roster and designs its next game plan. If Venezuela taught Japan that their fastballs are vulnerable, then Japan must walk away from this tournament asking, what are we going to do about it? For the players themselves, this loss will sit differently depending on who you ask. For the veterans, it is a familiar kind of pain. They have been through enough at the highest level to know that losses like this, as brutal as they feel in the moment, are often the ones that define a career. Not because they are celebrated, but because of what they force you to confront. For the younger players on this roster, this might be their first real experience of international heartbreak. The kind where you play well enough, prepare sincerely, and still fall short because the opponent was simply better on that day. That is one of the hardest lessons in sport. It does not mean you failed. It means the game is bigger than any one team, any one moment, any one strategy. The question, as it always is after a defeat like this, is simple: what do you do next? Do you go home, rest, and return next year doing exactly the same things? Or do you carry this loss with you, use it as fuel, and come back with something that Venezuela, or whoever stands across from you next time, will not be ready for? Manager Ibata now faces one of the most important challenges of his tenure. He must rebuild confidence without ignoring the lesson. He must maintain the identity that makes Samurai Japan great while also evolving the approach that left them vulnerable against Venezuela. This is the tightrope that every great manager must walk after a significant loss. Too much self-criticism, and you lose the team's belief. Too little, and you repeat the same mistakes on the same stage. Ibata's honesty at the press conference suggests he already understands this balance. He is not a man who will sweep this under the rug. But he is also not a man who will let this define everything that came before it. The work begins now. Not in spring training. Not at the next camp. Now. In the film rooms, in the scouting reports, in the quiet conversations between coaches and players about what needs to change. So we come back to the question we started with. What does it really mean to lose? For Samurai Japan, this loss against Venezuela means something specific. It means the world has caught up enough to hurt them on the biggest stage. It means that talent and tradition alone are no longer sufficient. It means that preparation, specific, detailed, honest preparation, must reach a new level. Manager Ibata already showed us the first step by naming the problem clearly and without flinching. Now the real work begins. Because Samurai Japan does not rebuild by forgetting this loss. They rebuild by remembering every single second of it, and deciding, with complete conviction, that it will never happen again. The next chapter of Japanese baseball starts today. And the only question left is who will be brave enough to write it.